welcome back to this series on getting back in shape after an extended break. If you've been following along, you'll know that obviously today is day 4, and if you started off at the beginning, you'll see that I am obviously warmed up at the beginning of this session because we have 18 and a half minutes left, and I started my timer with 30 minutes to go this morning. Now, the name of today for me, the name of the game is Recover and Recharge. And that's what these two sessions are going to do. And in the morning, we're going to focus on recovery. I'm focusing on recovery because if you did what I did, or if you did anything similar to what I did yesterday, and you pushed your limits, you pushed your boundaries, you're probably feeling it today. And today is a time to recover from that work with doing things that are going to help recenter me, recenter myself, and get me ready for the rest of the week. And not only that, but also that's immediately in front of me, which is the rest of the day. And the first way I'm going to do that is by opening up that great Chimera book that I opened up, I believe it was on day 2. May have been day 1, but may have been day 2. We're going to go to that, and for this one, I'm going to go back to number 1, but I'm going to play things down the octave basso. And I'm going to go ahead and my timer says I've got 17 and a half minutes, and that's where I'm going to go, right here. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and set it for 20, because if I were actually practicing, I wouldn't have talked in between, so I'll set it myself back to about 19 and a half. All right, so what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to see how it feels to play 5 minutes in a row. And how am I feeling? I'm not really going to stop. I'll take a short break in between, but I'll go ahead and start off with number 1, and then in the video, I'll fast forward until I get to the end of that 5 minutes and we'll talk. Okay, so with number 1, down the octave, 1, 1976. 1, 2, 1, 2, and. I'm back after doing that for 5 minutes, and I'll tell you what I experienced. When I first started playing, I didn't feel like I was centering my low notes, the notes below and a low F, terribly well. But as I got further along, I found that I was able to center some more. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time, since we're in recovery, refining that center. This is a good way to do it. I'm just going to take some things that I borrowed from the Low Weighterser series, but I'm going to do them in a little bit of a different dynamic. I'm going to take the dynamic back, and I'm just going to make sure I'm really feeling centered, which means having a really great sound pyramid, one that has warmth and core and brilliance. If you've watched some other videos, you'll know what I'm talking about, but we want one that has all 3 qualities, warmth and core and brilliance, just not a terribly tall pyramid, a shorter pyramid, shall we say. So I'm going to start off on a low F and just glissando down to the E, and we'll do that twice. 1, 2, 1, 2, and. I'm going to do it 2 more times. Again. There it is. Now F to E flat. And. I feel like I'm finding my range much better. I was already doing so, but these exercises are really helping me feel it. I'm going to go down F to D. 1, 2, and 3. feel like I'm 90% of the way there. I feel like I'm not quite 100% there yet. I'm gonna do that 4 more times. 1, 2, and 3. That's more like it. Now I'll take some dynamic down. There we are. Now I'm going to go F to D flat. Now I'll go F down to C. 2 and 3. Really reach. There we are. I'm not sure I was really reaching for that C. I did the last 2. Okay, good. Now let me find a way, find one of the exercises here, one of the chimeras, that'll use that register get me there. And you know, I jumped ahead to number 7, and this looks like it's going to put me right in the wheelhouse of those C's, D's, and E's. So if you're following along with me, go ahead and do number 7 with me. And C, since we've got these longer notes, we're going to take it probably a little under tempo, but the goal is to really center those notes as we get into them. 1, 2, 3. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being, let's do an Amazon Prime rating. 5 being your absolute best, 1 being your absolute worst, or 5 being really great, 1 being really terrible. What would you give yourself on that? For me, I'd give myself between a 3.5 and a 4. So I want to do some of this again. I'm going to take it from the last measure of that first line, particular for feeling those notes. And this time I'm going to put a little bit of a fermata on the last note to make sure I really center it. I'm not going to focus a ton on this, but I'm trying to start the process of recentering myself. Starting the process. 1, 2, and. Let's do that again. There we go. Much better. That's as far as I'm going to go with it, because actually I'm previewing the topic for tomorrow, which is recentering. That's not our focus today. Today is the focus on recovery. However, part of recovery is rediscovering where you need to be. So, at any rate, I'm already feeling a lot more limber here than I was at the end of the day. I'll level with you. Yesterday, at the end of that the second half-hour practice session, my top lip, it was swollen. It was no doubt, it was swollen up like a balloon. That was the one where we did the Arbin. And that was hard. I will say that was hard. However, it was really good that we did. Actually, that may have been the morning session. Doesn't really matter. What matters is you watched it, and I remember that we did it, and it was hard. So here we are, getting back to our work at hand. 6 minutes to go. With this last bit, I'm going to do some alternate with a little bit of flexibility here. So nothing from the Marsteller book, but some basic flexibility things we can make up on our own. So here, I'm just going to stay in first position and go across consecutive partials or touching partials in 16th notes in a relaxed way. And rest. And I'm going to do that up to the fourth partial to the D natural. There we go. 1. If you like my tempo, great, do it. If you don't, take your own tempo. I'm choosing something that's relaxed, but that's also going to have me actively being a little bit more fluid. 1, 2, and. Down a half step. 1, 2, and. Down another half step. 1, 2, and. And again. 1, 2, another half step. Next half step. 1, 2, and. Another half step. 1, 2, last 1. Okay, good. I'm feeling much less swollen, much more limber. One thing I want to point out that I did that I'm going to stop doing. I've been counting up until the last possible moment. And I'm uncomfortable doing that because when I speak and after I speak, then I have to breathe. Everything that I need to do before I come in is rushed, it's compressed. So I'm making an active and conscious decision and say, yeah, I can do that, or I can do something else. And you know what I'm going to do? Next time I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and because that's how I like to go. That is a comment to a post in the trombone pedagogy and teaching in pedagogy forum. It's one where where it's a tennis swing. We go back, and that's how I look at things. Okay, so last thing. I did yesterday at the end of the session, I did some soft playing to bring things back, and it didn't work very well. But let's see how things go today. We're going to take that same middle F, and we're going to dial ourselves down and see how soft we can get it. There, middle F, starting off at what would be, say, a mezzo piano in our mouthpiece, and then coming down. And let me get my mouthpiece here. And oh, much better. Let's do that again. Yeah, I could really feather that down. Now let's go to the instrument and see how that feels. Much better. Good. So all the work I did today, this morning, not only helped me recover from yesterday, from the stiffness, and limbered me up, it also set me up for the next session of the day, which I'm going to take on later today. And that is a session that's on recharge. That's actually going to be a really fun one for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hope you'll join me for it. It's actually going to be fairly short, but it's going to take 45 minutes. How can it be short and take 45 minutes at the same time? Come back and you'll see. Welcome back to day 4 in our Recovering from a Break series. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the day that today, the name of the game was Recover and Refresh. And in the morning, we recovered. But in this session, we're going to refresh. And I also mentioned that I'd be practicing for 45 minutes, but it would be a relatively short video. And here's why. The 45 minutes I'm actually going to spend on a musical goal. And when COVID happened and we couldn't play with other people, apps came up, people did various things. One of the things I used was the app Acapella to do a few things on my own. But I found in doing so that I found it to be pretty fulfilling, pretty gratifying work. In part because I've always been attracted to things that have a melody, a harmony, and a bass line. So my goal in the recharge is to remember why in the first place I'm doing all of this, because this is hard to do. It is hard to get back into shape when you feel like you don't really want to do it because you don't feel great. At the same time, there's a reason why we do it, and that's what this part is about. So I'm going to set my timer for 45 minutes, and I'm going to take up to 45 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be recording. There's a really wonderful trio by Ray Premru called 2 Pieces for 3 Trombones. And the first movement, Felicity, is the perfect piece for the kind of work I'm going to be doing now, because I just want to be playing without thinking about how I feel. And what better way to do that than to allow myself to make a recording, a multi-track recording where I'm not focused on how I feel, but I'm focused on making music. So I'm going to get working on that right now. And if you and come back in just as the screen splits over, and I'll have finished with it and go through sort of the process and how I felt about it. And I'm back 45 minutes later. Now, I'm not going to pretend that wasn't hard. That was hard, and it was stressful at the beginning for me, honestly, because I'm a perfectionist and I like for things to be perfect. But sometimes it's better for things to be done than to be perfect. Now, take a listen to what I wound up with. Here's the finished version. It's just a little under 2 minutes.
Now that you've had a chance to listen to the recording, I want to go over a couple things. First of all, the fact that I'm playing and then resting and playing and resting and playing and listening and resting is a really good one. It's actually a real world example of what we do in the orchestra, where we play and we rest and we play and we rest. And plus, it's a good way to allow myself to keep recovering, then to keep working, and then recover and work and recover. So just from a basic pedagogical point of view, from the technical point of view, it's a good thing to do. But musically, it's also a good musical exercise because you notice the first trombone part didn't have headphones, the second and third did. With those headphones, I was really trying to pay attention to how I shaped things dynamically and rhythmically in the first voice. Sometimes I got it, sometimes I didn't. That's okay. And I'm going to go less into the making of a video like that and more into why it's useful, which is it really gets us out of ourselves. It gets us out of how do I feel right now, right here, when I don't feel great, and it gets me into how can I play along with this voice, play along with this thing over here, play along with the first. If I'm in the second, I'll play the first voice, then record the bass voice, and the last thing I'll record is the second. And so how can I fit into both of those things? So I've really got my musical brain on to help me get through the, shall we say, the technical aspects of musicianship while I'm still playing music. And then at the end of it, I want to contribute. Each voice wants to contribute to that product in an individual way that supports the other voices, that brings its own qualities to it, but that doesn't stand out on its own. These are all great things to do, especially on a fourth day back. Gosh, what a great thing to do. So how can you do this on your own? Whether you use an app like Acapella or something similar to it, or whether you just record yourself playing something and then you play along with it. Gosh, what a great thing to do. Whether it be things like the chimeras like I played, or whether you feel like doing Bordoni or other vocalises or other etudes. These are things you can do yourself to, if you don't have someone else to play with, to just play on your own. But if you do have someone to play with, that's even better. I don't go back to work until next week, so I don't have people to play with other than my family, which I could, but that's beside the point. I'm actually here doing my own practicing. So perhaps that's for another day. I hope you found this helpful and useful towards getting back into shape, because we are going to be hitting back to some nuts and bolts tomorrow, and we'll get into that when we get to tomorrow. But thanks for tuning in. Hope you tune in tomorrow. Thanks for joining me.